We are live. Welcome to the Meredith Show. It's so good to be back and with Julie Krasinski. I want to introduce Julie to the world because in case you don't know her as well as I do, she has an amazing history. Julie has spent nearly 30 years developing heart-centered coaching techniques to help entrepreneurs find clarity, energy, and joy in their business and life. After a successful career in direct sales, she took a leap of faith in 2021, leaving behind her team and some big perks that we're going to talk about to build the Joyful CEO Life community. Now she empowers her entrepreneurs to create a business and life they truly love with both ease and joy. Julie is also the proud executive managing director of eWomen Network's Calabasas, California chapter, where she leads events and uplifts women entrepreneurs. In 2024, she was honored as the Managing Director of the Year. And get this, I believe last count, there are 34,000 members of eWomen. Do I have that right? Because you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No idea. Actually,
Sandra Yancey, our CEO with eWomen, shared that with me. And I think that's amazing. That's a big nod of faith. And I'm so excited to be with you. And as always on this show, we don't hold back. So I'd love to start in the beginning, and I'm just going to be totally straight with you. There was a time many years ago that I was kind of judgy about direct sales, but you had such an extraordinary run that it makes me rethink anything I've ever thought in the past. So tell us a little bit about your beginnings in entrepreneurship, because I think it's fascinating.
Thanks, Meredith. Thanks for having me. You know, I was just like you. I was very anti direct sales. Back then, you got to think 30 years ago, there was like Tupperware. I don't even know what I remember. Like, I'm from back east, so it was like Longenberger baskets, and I had so many of them. My husband at the time would be like, "Stop bringing the baskets." I'm like, "What are we doing here?" And I was always one of those women who supported friends that had those types of businesses, had the parties. I liked to connect and bring people over. So I always had parties for everybody. And I ironically said no to direct sales for 5 years to my beauty consultant.
Okay, so you were even tougher than I was. And I love this because the truth is we don't know what we don't know. Exactly. And you actually wound up building an empire. And my favorite part of this is part of the reward of the empire you built in direct sales included not 1, 2, or 3, or 4 cars you were awarded with, but 14.
Yeah.
How on earth did you earn 14 cars? What did it take? That's amazing.
Yeah. So one of the perks was one of the things that really motivated me. I had 2 small children and we needed a car, and I was just having fun. Like, I came from corporate America, started a family, wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, had both my kids, and then I started having like mommy mush brain. I'm like, I love being a mom, but you know, you're used to working, you're used to producing. And I felt like, even though that was the most important role, and I did want to stay home with them, I chose to do that. I felt like there was something more. And so when my beauty consultant persistently would ask me, like every 6 months or a year, "You'd be so good at this. You should join my team." And I'm like, I am not selling lipstick. I'm like, corporate America, I worked my way up the corporate ladder. I'm not selling lipstick. Isn't this for like blue-haired ladies and older people that drive pink cars? I was 30 years old, right? And so I said no pleasantly, but like you said, I didn't have all the information. And when she got me, she said to me, "I think most intelligent women need to hear all the facts before they can make a decision." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm intelligent. Yeah, come on over. And then I'm going to tell you no." I was like a brat. So she came over, explained the marketing plan to me, and I asked her if I could take a nap during this. And she's like, "I don't care." It's like, I was used to being an employee for those years. I never knew I could make my own schedule, do my own thing. I could nap when the kids did, I could work at night, wherever around them. And so I said, "Okay, sign me up." And what I didn't realize was the impact it had on me, just the friendships that I built. Like today, I'm still really good friends with so many people.
Wow.
It was a really impactful move that community. I mean, they helped me through, my divorce. I mean, just other, life-changing situations that have always been there for me and continue to. And so
Yeah.
we needed a car. And so my husband at the time, I was just having fun. Like, oh, this is fun. Let's get together with our girlfriends, play with makeup and skincare. And I come home with a pile of money. And I'm like, well, this is good, and he was home watching the kids. So this was even better. I got a break. And so I knew that we can get a car. And he's like, we need a new car. So maybe you could stop playing around and, get serious. And I'm like, oh boy, okay. Game on. Yeah.
Well, what did it take, I guess, to earn cars? I assume that you learned a lot about business, and we can disclose the name of the company, yes, because you're wearing the colors that keep it famous.
And ironically, everybody thought I wore pink everything. And I really, up until recently, had no pink clothes. I had one pink sweater. I had to go out and buy. I mean, I like pink. My office was pink and everything else, but none of my clothes were pink. But very interesting. You build a team, right? But we're direct sales network, not network marketing. So you can still make money just selling the product. And that's what I was doing for about a year and a half. And then when he proposed to me that I should go for a car, I'm like, oh boy, this is like a real business thing, right? And this is, you look at the through line coming, now working with entrepreneurs and coaching entrepreneurs and all that. Didn't really realize what I was doing back then, but how to actually build a team with ease and flow, and not, I mean, of course, there were some stressful times when you're getting close and you're not hitting the numbers or it doesn't look like it's going to happen. But I think just, I remember my girlfriend taught me to visualize myself in that car, and it was a candy apple red Grand Am back in 1998.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah. And I would still, I can still see myself visualizing it, not the real car, but me driving. Remember, we used to drive up at a bank and you would put the money in and go on a shoot, or you would talk to somebody.
Yes.
Right? Well, I would pull up in the window and I would picture myself. I was in a van, driving my kids around in a green van, picture myself in this candy apple red car. And I kept visualizing it. But of course, I backed it with work. But I did it, it's not that it was easy. I made it more simple for me to stay, true to my values and be a mom first.
I love that.
My business around it. So
I heard you say, you were breaking up a little bit, putting your business first and your family first, excuse me,
yes.
and building a life around it. So few people recognize that possibility, but that to me means freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom to really, as you said, nap when you want to. I mean, this is the dream for many corporate people who are frankly stuck in a grind. What other lessons would you say that you learned along the way about business? One of the things I admire about you, Julie, is you have really great rigor when it comes to follow-up. And I've always been, seeing this as a blind spot for myself. When I get busy or I'm overwhelmed with work, I don't necessarily call back as fast as I would like to. But you, my friend, amaze me. So what lessons have you learned in not only direct sales, but throughout these 30 years of entrepreneurship that have really served you and great reward?
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because I created a signature talk around networking. And so I'm visiting some of the chapters in our eWomen network to deliver that talk this year. And, sometimes looking back, you don't realize these are the things you were doing that helped you become successful. But then I think Jeff Bezos, I think it was Steve Jobs, right, said is that you learn by looking back, and then you see, oh, now I understand why that worked. And I looked at it and I'm like, I think Jeff Olson wrote the book, The Slight Edge, and it was like the 1%, the one who is not following up. If you're just 1% better than everybody else, or you're doing 1% more than everybody else, it's not like you have to grind and do 50% or give it, people always said, well, I'll do it when I could give it 110%. Just give it 100%, for now, for an hour, for 10 minutes, and just doing that 1% more than anybody else. And I make it a point that I do the follow-up. Even if somebody takes my card, I always ask for their information, and then I make sure that I'm the one doing the follow-up. And I will tell you, I've gone to events recently, And not one person has followed up with me. Not one.
Wow, that is eye-opening. And I agree with you. That could be a game changer.
Yes.
I've learned some tricks to have technology up my sleeve, snap a photo and immediately send it to my assistant so she puts it in my database for an immediate follow-up because, frankly, we can lose a card, or if we're not organized and we text somebody, we might forget necessarily like 2 days later that we said we'd set up a coffee. So I love that. And the truth is, you're giving yourself, you're generous, because I think most people aren't willing necessarily to be 1% better. It's not I shouldn't say they're not willing. They're not intentionally saying I'd rather be mediocre today. I talk about this all the time in my speeches, right? But they're kind of coasting along. So what woke you up? Was it the ability to see that you can not only win a car, but you could do it again and again, and then make a living? So tell me a little bit about when you really had your big ahas early on in business.
So I think not having it being our main income kind of let me off the hook a little bit to maybe coast a little bit sometimes, so it was like, oh, now I got to earn a car. Like I was just playing around with this thing, like having fun, making extra money so I can, dress my kids in Baby Gap and Gymboree at the time and, take them to McDonald's and not have to ask for money, because it was like very, disempowering to not have my own control of my money anymore. I didn't have money coming in. And that was, eye-opening for me. So when I was going for the free car, so it's a car that you earn, so you don't win it, but you don't pull tickets out of a lottery. You actually, build a team. It's your team and your sales. And I just feel that I always went for quality and not quantity, because they would say like, oh, you're 48 parties away from a new car. You're 64 parties away from, becoming a director and all that. And I'm like, I don't have time to do 48 parties. Let me talk to quality women. And so build relationships with people first, right? And then, back then the car, I think you only needed 12 or 15 people for a team to earn a car. And I look back now like, oh my gosh, that I do miss. Let me tell you, having a free car for every 2 years, you get to re-qualify for a new car, and there's different levels. And yes, I had the pink car, but I was never always producing at that pink car level. But you can still make a really good living, and you can still put your family first and travel and do all those things, around your business. And I've enjoyed the freedom for all those years.
And now you've bravely walked away, and you gave up the car and some of the huge perks that you were awarded as you accelerated your career. And I think we shouldn't let it go without summarizing, like, what are you most proud of that you created with direct sales? Because it was a long run.
Yeah, well, interesting. I started when I lived in Buffalo, New York, and with friends and family. And then we got an opportunity to move to California. And so we moved to California, and I was a brand new sales director. I had gotten, I was earning my second car, just became a sales director, which means I had a bigger team. And we moved to California where we knew nobody. And that was very, very interesting and eye-opening. But I think I always say I was too dumb to doubt. Like people would go like, oh, you're trying to sell this like near Hollywood, and, is it good? Because it's not expensive, and, blah, 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 all this stuff. And, there's a big cosmetic company right up the freeway. I'd never heard of them. So I'm like, I had no idea. I just did what I knew. It took about 6 months to start building my team, but I really got involved in the community, in my kids' school. And so I went back to what I knew, build relationships, right? And then people started asking me, like, can I do what you do? I want to be home with the kids, but I'd like to have my own my money, instead of just having and what happened a lot was, there were ups and downs. We went through the housing decline 2008 with the stock market and the whole thing. And, there were CFOs and CEOs of companies, my girlfriends, that their husbands lost their jobs, and so that was a great opportunity for them to help and still be able to maintain the house and be mom first and make some extra money.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And then you felt guided to walk away from it all. So what happened then? Because it takes a lot of courage to move to a community where you don't know somebody and then crush it, quite frankly, with your direct sales business. Not many people walk away from that level of perks, but I really admire your next move. So tell me about that.
Thank you. Well, what happened was when we moved here, we ended up in a year and a half became what was like the top 1%, 2% of the company at the time was the pink Cadillac, right? And so my team and I, because you get to keep everything that you built. So I built my team in New York, and they were, back then we just had like teleconferencing. I think you got on a conference call on the phone, there was right. I'm going, yeah, we had the corded phone. We walked uphill both ways to school barefoot. And so we built to the Cadillac unit. And then my marriage kind of fell apart, not because of that, but there were things leading up to it. And so it was kind of like a different thing that I ever thought I'd ever go through. Like, oh boy, I have to make a decision for my life and for my kids. And we ended up getting divorced, and it was very scary because now I'm living in a very more high-end community and neighborhood. It was much more expensive to live here in California than it is to Buffalo, New York, right?
Of course, yeah.
And so that was very scary. And I feel at certain points, like a lot of my friends and family didn't even know what I was going through. I went through a big depression. I didn't let anybody really know because I was functioning. I did what I had to do. And I ended up turning in my Cadillac because I said, I can't maintain that level of, energy and emotions that takes to be there for your team. I still had my team. I just chose the next car down. I thought it's still a free car. Thank God for that. Right.
Yeah. Wow.
So I really feel like I had to hit rock bottom. I was really in that victim mode versus a victor mode. And I really was in, survival versus thriving. And it took me a while. I did a lot of personal development courses. I, hired coaches. I did all the things that I felt, built my faith back up and everything. And so through that journey of personal development, I met like amazing coaches and amazing spiritual coaches and people that really, helped me tap into my gut instinct, which always directs me in the right direction. Sometimes I didn't listen to it. And that's where some things did not go the way I planned. But long story short, in 2019, I started our eWomen Network chapter here where, we have events and we have a community of entrepreneurs. And so I became the managing director. And so I put a lot of effort into that because it felt new and fresh. And it also, I think, taking the pressure off, like they weren't coming to me, for my business. They were coming to me because they wanted to build their own individual business. So it wasn't like, you always feel like you have some ownership when it's in direct sales. Like their success is directly a reflection of your leadership. And sometimes most of the people are not successful because they don't do the work or they can't get over themselves or what will people think of me. So you spend a lot of time on that. You spend a lot of time on their personal development rather than teaching them how to run the business.
Yeah, I always say this is such a good moment to pause and reflect because as somebody who's also coached thousands of people through the years, I always say, and people are shocked, the one thing that gets in the way more than anything is you. Your limiting beliefs. You're not willing to be courageous. Your mindset really matters. So I acknowledge and agree 10,000 fold. And for you, it seems like you've had some ahas. And what I love the most, to be honest, about where you are today is people don't talk about the soul enough, Julie. But that's an area that you are now quite focused. So let's bring us up to speed for people who know you now. And it's amazing, by the way, to hear how you've learned all these lessons. And now we have a big award that I like to explain a little bit bigger. But before we get there, tell me what you're doing outside of eWomen Network.
Yeah. So I love being the executive managing director of our chapter here in Calabasas, Westlake Village, Thousand Oaks area, because it is a platform for women and a few good men to really thrive in their business and to not only connect with community, be with like-minded people, but also, just strategize, business strategies. And it's just a great way to build your business, whether you're newer in business or wanting to expand where you are, or like me, pivot, like you said, in 2021, that soul, that spirit that was nudging me to, maybe there's something more, maybe there's something else. And that was the same nudge I got when I started my Mary Kay business, 30 years ago. And I just, my mentor and coach at the time, she said, what if the bigger risk was not taking a chance and trying this and staying where you were, which is the known, right? It's your safety net. Like, I know this, I can do this in my sleep. I make money doing this. I get a free car from doing this. I get prizes every month, What about the scary thing over here that you think like, hey, I'm going to do this, but it's the unknown zone, right? And that's where, and I've heard this twice. I've heard it with Sandra Yancey last week, and also my coach, Shamika Tankerson, is, confidence is a consequence of courage. So you have to have that courage to take the step before you see the whole staircase, right? And most people are not willing to do that. They want a assurance, like, I'll do this when I have that.
And that's a trap. Like, unfortunately, that's not leadership. That's playing small. I'm not diminishing anybody who is not finding their courage, but on the other side of it is where you shine. That's in my world what I say. It takes courage to speak up, stand out, and shine. It takes courage to make a change.
Yeah.
And you've had so much wisdom you've acquired through the years. And I think it's very generous of you to turn around and say, I could give in a big way and in a different way than you had, to some extent. Like you said, you've learned a lot through the years.
Yeah. Interesting thing is, when I decided I was going to be a coach, mentor, guide to women entrepreneurs, a couple of my friends said, oh, I'm in, I need this. I came up with a company name. My company name, Spirited Soul Coaching, because I feel like you just really want to get into your soul and your spirit and just let it guide you and let it direct you on the right pathway. And then I created the Joyful CEO Life program at the time. Now it's a methodology and a community where, to have more of that clarity and energy, and then have overflow in all the areas of your life, right? And so that's what I teach. And I also teach, they always say, you teach what you most need to learn, right? So we're constantly always expanding and learning from that, from that point. But yeah, I took a leap of faith, and I just absolutely love it. And something that I feel that I found last year with the coaching community is offering gifted coaching sessions. So I actually have like 10 spots earmarked for gifted coaching sessions per month on my calendar, where I just give back and help women get clarity and, find out what they didn't think that they knew, but they really did know. And it's just been such a gift to me as well as to them. So
I think that that's something that people underestimate, is that if we're in generosity, I always feel it comes back to us tenfold.
always.
And we have to be in the spirit of generosity if we're entrepreneurs, because I think people can feel if you're only around for a sale. And as you alluded to earlier, relationships are so inherent and critically successful for achieving goals and dreams and building communities, as you say, and crushing our goals. And I love that about you. So you've built this amazing community. If I could honor you regarding eWomen, for people who are just tuning in, you won not just an award, but Executive Managing Director of the Year for the entire world in eWomen Network is pretty amazing. So I just want to say congratulations again. It's such an honor to have been serving alongside you. Some people might know that I had the honor of being a part of the leadership team in our Calabasas chapter. And one of the things that I think is really cool is you've been around for a minute, and you confided in me. I said, did you see that coming? And what you said to me, I thought was super awesome and raw and vulnerable. You actually thought to yourself, you know what? Why not? It could be me this year. Maybe I don't want to take your words. What was your mindset right before you were awarded this huge, huge honor?
Yeah. So I really didn't expect it in one way, but then I started thinking, like you said, you don't do anything to lead up to it. Like it's nothing that you can do the
Yeah.
extra work or go the extra mile. I was just being who I am and sharing when I can with the other managing directors or the newer managing directors, and sharing some of things that I'm doing that are working for our chapter's growth. And because I feel like there's no competition, although sometimes it feels like there is, And I remember that morning, I'm like, you know what, you practice and you preach and you teach your clients to visualize, themselves doing it. I thought, well, gosh, I had never been an award winner on that stage. And I thought, what would it feel like? So that morning when I was walking, I was just kind of imagining what would it feel. Well, up until that moment, I didn't even think of it. And I thought, what if I did win this award? What would it feel like? What would I look like? What am I wearing? I started thinking of all this stuff and what would I say, and I just kind of thought like, oh yeah, looking out, and I'm like, oh, this would be so cool if it did happen, because then I can tell everybody, like, I visualized it that morning. Like I wasn't leading up to it, like doing meditation on it every day or whatever. It was just that morning's walk. And the reason that I loved it so much when it did actually happen exactly like I pictured it was for my the members, my members out there. I had so many, like 25, 28 members that joined us that year at our conference. And it was so cool I felt like this award was for them as well. And it just made them feel, um, what, like they had a part in this some way, or they were part of a winning chapter, of a growing chapter, of a chapter that is thriving as well.
I love that. I love that. And just for people who aren't aware, if you didn't see our previous interview with Julie and Sandra Yancey, the CEO, announced in front of our chapter that we have like one of the best, most robust chapters in the country. And I didn't know that, but I knew that we had an awesome, amazing executive managing director. And Julie, I would say we're about to round out our time together. There's so many generous things that you shared already with our audience. And I would love to know, on a final note, we talk about calls to courage and finding the courage to shine. And, for somebody out there who does have a dream and they are struggling, they're on the struggle bus because it's so common. What would you say to them, knowing what you know now?
Yeah. Well, they always say like no risk, no reward, and I know Sandra said this, I think she might've said it last week too. I do get to hear her speak a lot, being a managing director. So I think it was like, I've never died from a risk I took, besides doing something physically risky to your body.
Jumping out of a plane, you never know, right? That's a little more risky, but.
So it's like most of the things that we're wanting to do, we hold ourselves back, like you said, right? And it's only because I think a lot, because I talk to a lot of women, I do a lot of these gifted coaching sessions. And there's a through line, and it's usually the fear of judgment from other people, and, what if I try this and it doesn't work, so I think the thing is what if it did work?
Yeah.
Look at it that way. What if it does work? What if this is a thing, or you use it as market research? Well, won't do that again. Let me try something else.
Worst case scenario, if you don't get the result you want, you can cross it off the list of wondering. But if you don't try, I love that. It's so true. You'll never know.
You'll never know unless you try.
Yeah.
And if you have a community of, friends and like-minded business people that are doing the same thing. When you go to ask your friends or family that don't have a business, they don't understand. They don't understand what you're doing. They don't understand what it's like to be an entrepreneur. It's a whole different world than being an employee. Sometimes as entrepreneurs, we go, why don't we just go get a job? It might be easier to just clock out, get that paycheck, right? But then we know that maybe, there's a million jobs that need to still be filled, right? But you know what? We can make a bigger impact when we stay true to what our soul and our spirit is guiding us, because the dream that you got and the dream that I got was only given to us, and it can only come through us. And, we need to just step up and step out. And this is 2025, the year to thrive, right?
I love it. She's rhyming on that final note. I love it. Very well done, Julie. I've enjoyed this interview so much. And if you'd like to get in touch with Julie, we're going to drop all her contact information below this. And you can be in touch with Julie Krasinski, not only at the eWomen Network, but with her Spirited Soul Coaching Company. I know she'll welcome you reaching out to her to connect and support you with fulfilling those sometimes hairy and scary dreams and goals. Thank you so much, Julie, for opening up today. Thank you for having the courage to shine. And for all of you out there watching, we know that you know somebody out there doing amazing things. Don't keep it to yourself. Take a little time and share the love. Reach out to us. We want to make sure to showcase you. Thanks so much for watching. And Julie, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
So much fun. Thank you.